Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Martin Johnson and I represent your host for this event, Highlands Isles Enterprise. And Highlands Isles Enterprise is delighted to offer this Learning Works virtual conference to you today, the focus of which is on business survival through a recession. And this is the 5th Learning Works virtual conference that HIE has hosted, and we hope it to be one of the best so far. Our virtual conference is taking place both online and here in Forsyths, in Horizon Scotland, HIE's incubator unit. We have some 30 guests here with us in the room and some 400 guests online, so welcome to you all. And our online guests are from all quarters of Scotland, from the Northern Isles to Dumfries, from the Western Isles to over here in the east, and beyond into the UK as well. For those of you that had a chance to look, the Learning Works website is a service to find information and undertake business diagnostics. And today, in addition to the main speaker, we have 2 video case studies to offer you. And there'll be one now at the beginning, which I'm just about to introduce, and one at the very end, which will conclude the conference. After Sir Richard's presentation, there'll be an opportunity for question and answers, and our online guests can put their questions to us in writing at any time during the presentation by using the online boxes on your computer screen. Therefore, to begin matters, it's my pleasure to introduce our first video case conference, and that's one by Black Isle Bronze. Can we run the video now, please?
My name is Farquhar Lang. I am the Managing Director, Company Director of Black Isle Bronze Ltd. I started working for myself as a sole trader in 1994. Within a couple of months, I was lucky enough to land quite a large contract with the rugby football union at Twickenham Stadium, so it was an easy start. We get a lot of our existing orders from referrals and repeat orders from existing customers. We take great care of our existing customers. It's about listening to their needs, that the attention to detail and the quality is maintained throughout the processes that we have here. We make sure we never miss a deadline. We make sure that we follow up every referral and every inquiry we get quite vigorously. We also use examples of our existing work, projects that we've done up to date, as examples of the quality that we can achieve. I think what we've been good at over the years has been guarding against complacency. We've had a number of challenges, not least our geographical location compared to where we sell our product, which we've had to overcome on a regular basis. I think it's good standard practice to operate efficiently and constantly look at costs. But what we found recently, which has been very interesting in the recent financial crisis, is that our material costs for the raw material of bronze has gone right down, which has been a huge help for us. It's important to have face time with clients and make the effort to go and see them. The website is obviously a fantastic tool, but that's all it is. It replaces a brochure, but I think people always want to meet the person that's actually going to make your monument or your memorial. At the moment, Black Isle Bronze has a full order book until this time next year. Whether or not the recession will have a delayed effect on us remains to be seen. But rather than wait and see, what we're doing at the moment is launching a new website, which will be in Arabic as well, tailor-made for the Dubai market. We've done a little bit of work out there, and everybody knows, it's common knowledge, that there's a lot going on out there. So it's just a matter of being proactive and trying to beat the other foundries to the punch. We have very strict controls on managing our money and our account. We make sure that all new customers agree to a pro forma basis for which they can receive a small discount. Existing customers that we know well and they know us usually pay on completion of the work anyway, so we're happy with that state of affairs. It's just the new customers that we don't know at all, we make sure we pay by agree a pro forma agreement. The key to our survival and our business growth is due to our flexibility and of our greatest asset, which is the staff that we have here. We have some very, very skilled people working here now who ensure that the quality is maintained all the way through. The skills of the team here are now in demand all over the world. My right-hand man, Alan Forbes, he was 14 years at one of the big English foundries. Wanted to come back to Scotland, so he's come and been with me for 3 years. The others really have all been trained in-house, either by myself or him, and it's amazing to watch them grow and watch them take on responsibility, because I'm certainly not afraid of handing that out to people, so long as I'm confident that they can listen and listen to what the customer wants. So I don't have a problem with delegating responsibility at all. I've got to spend a lot of time on the road and at airports and seeing clients, and that's very important. So I've got to be able to leave, and also I've got to take holiday occasionally as well. So it's very important to have people that you trust. It's a two-way thing. They trust you and vice versa. The one piece of advice I would say, which has been beneficial to us, is look to export. The strength of the pound has obviously fallen away. It's a good time for manufacturing, I believe, because of the material costs, the interest rates, and the drop in the pound. It's got to be tried. I'd rather not be sitting here in a year's time thinking, oh, I wish I did it.
Ladies and gentlemen, I hope that you found the video case study by Blackwell Bronze interesting. I'd now like to introduce our main speaker for today, the Right Honourable Sir Richard Needham. Sir Richard is both an accomplished politician and businessman. After the 1992 election, the Prime Minister appointed him Minister for Trade, where he developed and implemented Britain's export strategy and has led trade missions in the Middle East, the Far East, Latin America and Africa, covering 40 countries. Since leaving politics, Sir Richard has been involved as chairman, director or advisor to over 20 companies. He has been a director of Dyson Ltd since 1995 and is chairman of Avon Rubber plc. At a time when UK businesses are experiencing the first major downturn for over a decade, Sir Richard Needham's experience on the ups and downs of political and commercial life provide a unique insight into what to do and what to avoid in the present climate. Therefore, it's my pleasure to introduce to you Sir Richard Needham.
Thanks. Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon, all you out there. About 2 years ago, maybe a bit longer actually, about 3 years ago, I was asked if I would go and talk to the Grant Thornton annual dinner at the rooms in Whitehall, the Whitehall banqueting rooms in London. And before I went, I had to go to Euston Station, where Grant Thornton has an appallingly ugly 1960 office building, in order to get a briefing. And I got to the reception, and the lady said, oh yes, you're expected on the second floor. So I went in the lift, got out the second floor, and on the lift, and behind the lift and on the wall, was a sign which said Administration and Insolvency Division. So, and in front of the sign were 4 people, 2 men and 2 women, although it was hard to tell the difference because they were all dressed alike and they'd all got crew cuts and steel rimmed glasses and thin lips and looked pretty frightening. And they took me into this enormous room, and with a great table, and sort of sat me down. And so I sort of rather nervously said, what would you like me to talk about? Would you like to hear about Dyson? Would you like to hear about some of the successes that I've achieved in my life in business? Oh no, they said, Sir Richard, we have looked you up, we have Googled you, and we have found that for every success you have had 4 failures. And obviously, being the Administration Insolvency Division of Grant Thornton, we're much more interested in your failures than we are in your successes. Well, that was fine. I mean, I wouldn't have had a problem with that, because I'm good on failures, and I'm going to talk about some of them. But one of these men, or maybe one of the ladies, I'm not sure, then wrote me my speech. and had it all literally down, you know, paragraph by paragraph, sentence by sentence, explanation. Well, I'm not into that. I can't cope with. I do my own speeches. So when it came to the dinner, I stood up, you see, in front of these 300 or 400 of their customers, and I told them the story that I just told you. I said, I'll tell you, my first failure was my own business, which, unfortunately, I said, after I became a minister in Northern Ireland, I had to give up any interest or investment or involvement with it of any sort. And it was taken over by my colleagues, my partners, who I'd worked very happily and successfully with. And they decided, as I was no longer there and had been a key part of the business, that what should happen was that they would get in outside advisors to tell them how they should run the business. And I said they did that. They got in outside advisors, and within a year, the business had gone broke. And the outside advisors were Grant Thornton. So it was true, and it was true. It was true. I hope nobody from Grant Thornton's out there listening today, but there you are. The point of that story is that one mustn't be afraid of failure. I mean, I don't call it failure in my life. I've never had a failure in my life. I've had the odd reverse. It is true. I've had the odd reverse, but I've never had a failure. And there are going to be reverses in this recession. I suspect even some in this room are going to face serious reverses. There are certainly great numbers of people out there who are going to face reverses. And some of them, and most of them, are inevitable and impossible for you personally or individually to deal with. You can't. It's beyond control. If the bank stops lending you money, there's nothing you can do about it. I started a business years ago called Amber Medical, which had an agency to sell perambulatory pumps for people with who wanted to get drugs intravenously to help them when they were, you know, pain and so on, pain control and all that. It was a wonderful business, fantastic pumps, which were made by an American company. It was a quoted company, very successful company. We were the agents for the UK. That company, because Bill Clinton cut back on nursing home budgets in America, went into Chapter 11. Chapter 11 in America is a way of defrauding the creditors, for those of you who don't know, because it means the business can restructure. It was taken over by another vast American medical company, who then completely abused their rights as far as the individual licensees, of whom we were one, and just dumped us. Just left us hanging there. There was nothing we could do. They refused to take on the licenses, and we went bust. Now, there was nothing anybody could have done about that. You know, there are a whole range of circumstances when companies fail, and they will fail in this recession, where people will have done their best, they'll have worked their hardest, and the consequences that they have to face are not of their own making. And people that happens to have got to live with that. They mustn't get worried about that. They mustn't blame themselves for it. What they have to do is, in the words of the song, you know, pick themselves up, dust themselves down, and start all over again. That's what you have to do. You have to do that, and the other thing you have to do is, if you are in a circumstance where you feel that there isn't anything that you can do, don't just sit and hang in there and hope that somehow tomorrow's going to change. Somehow tomorrow is going to get better and you'll get out of it. Because you won't. It's very unlikely. So in those circumstances, you have to get an insolvency practitioner, you have to face up to reality, and you have to think how you're then going to get going again. But don't blame yourselves. Don't think it's your fault. Don't lose your self-confidence, because if that's the case, believe you me, I wouldn't be standing here now, let alone in front of Grant Thornton. That's enough about reverses. Let's talk about how we don't get to the stage of a reverse. The most important thing, I think, in times like this, and Farquhar talked about it in that excellent little film there, is the customer. How do you now, whatever you're doing, get yourself into the position of your customer? What can you do to help them, to assist them, to get them through their difficulties, because they've got as many difficulties as anybody else? What can you offer them which is different and gets you to stand out compared to their other suppliers? What are those little wrinkles that you can come up with which make you, you know, a more trusted, a more important supplier to them than their others. I'll tell you how in Dyson we're trying to do that. In Dyson we're saying a whole series of things, but one of the things we're doing in Dyson is we're saying people want smaller machines. So we have designed and are implementing a whole range of much smaller vacuum cleaners. They're not cheaper, so they may be a bit more expensive, but they are smaller. The quality is absolutely at the top. They have a 5-year guarantee, and their technology is always improving. So the key to what we're saying to our, and because they are expensive, the margins that our customers can charge are much greater than if they were very cheap Chinese lookalikes from the Far East. So our answer to the problem is do something different, something which is visibly different as far as the customers are concerned, the final customers are concerned. Do something which offers our own customers bigger margins and allows us to have more space on their floors than our competitors, and make sure that we maintain or improve on wherever the technology and the quality. The quality is absolutely crucial, because that's what people will want. If they're going to buy something and spend money, they're going to want to do it on something which they know will last and which they can rely on. Also, we have to do some other things. I mean, we have to make sure our customers pay us. And one of the ways in which small businesses most of all often fall over is because they're too frightened and too scared to ask their biggest customers to pay, and their biggest customers too often are not prepared to pay and don't treat their smaller suppliers as well as they ought to. And what happens is we're too frightened to ask for the money, because if we ask the money we think they'll go somewhere else. Well, that's the best way to go broke. You go broke no quicker than that by not getting your customers to pay. So you have to be, as I said, with your customers, you have to keep alongside them, you have to think about them, but you also have to be tough with them. You have to stand up for them. And there are all sorts of ways in which you individually can think about how your customers, how you can help your customers. But don't be silly about it. Don't, you know, the days that the banks always used to have this thing, I'm sure Clydesdale Bank doesn't do that, but the banks always used to have day outs, didn't they? You could always go to the rugby. Actually, the auditors do it too. I wonder why why we're in this mess. Why, has anybody asked PwC or KPMG, who audit all these banks, why it's gone wrong? Well, what the hell have they been up to? Anyway, they're very good at asking people out for golf days. They're very good for asking people out to go to the rugby or the football, the cricket. The fact that the English always lose when they take these people out, I have no idea why half people go. But anyway, they do. Forget it. People don't want that. They don't want, if you can afford to do that, you can afford to lend more money or reduce your rates, or you can afford to reduce your cost to your clients. I mean, I'm all for taking somebody out for a beer and a sandwich, so keep alongside. But all those sorts of things, get rid of. And throughout the company, look at everything that you do. There are always ways in which you can save money. And at the moment, everybody, when things are going well, everybody says, I'm controlling costs, but they're not. Look at every single way that you can save money. Now, I know the present Prime Minister, I'm not being political, wants us to spend money, particularly those people who haven't got any money, to spend other people's money, but that's not the answer for most of us. The answer for our business is most of us to see how we can reduce our costs and save money, but at the same time, and this is equally crucial, motivate and maintain the morale of our staff. Because people are bound to be worried. People are bound to be frightened. People are bound to be thinking, what happens to us? Although, interestingly, I see a survey today in papers say most people still seem to think they're individually, personally okay, while they think the country's going to the dogs. But that won't last. And my view about that is that it's more important at this stage than at any other to look after people, take them into your confidence, and if you can save, make sure that in those savings you don't just put it all in the pocket of the owners or the petty cash tin or whatever, but if you do manage to achieve your budgets and your targets, then give it back. That's what people are worried want. I mean, again, going back to the Dyson scenario, this year Our profits were down 20%. We didn't meet our target. We didn't meet, both for the long-term incentive plan or for the annual bonus, we didn't meet it. But nevertheless, we made a hell of a lot of money. And Sir James Dyson, in his generosity, his wisdom, supported by myself as the Chairman of the Remuneration Committee, we gave a 25% bonus to everybody. Nobody expected it. Nobody thought they were going to get it. I tell you, that did more to improve morale than any other thing we could conceivably have done, because they saw that whereas they weren't expecting it, nobody believed it was going to happen, and then that arrived in their pay package. So what we're doing this year is to look at how we can, you know, eat bread rather than butter and honey and roast beef and whatever. But we've set ourselves targets that if we achieve them, we will be able to pay our staff the same sort of bonus that we did a couple of years ago. And that means, you know, no more first-class travel, World Traveller Plus for any daytime flights, even to the Far East. You know, we're all going to have to... But we know at the end of it, everybody knows at the end of it, that if we do all this and go through everything, you know, do we need all these... Do you need all those photocopiers? Do you? Do you? Have you looked at your fax machines, your printers? Have you made sure you've barcoded them all? Have you made sure you've looked at how you could save paper on them? I mean, all these things you can go through and look at, and I guarantee you will find ways in which you can save money. Now, when you come, where's Farquhar? There he is. That is a great story. Right? Now, let's think about his marketing. Let's think about how he can increase his sales. Where's the man from Scottish Enterprise? Is there somebody here from Scottish Enterprise? No, well, that's really... One of the things he should have one of those little brass castings of his in every embassy in the world. Every major embassy should have one of those wonderful little models he's got there, one of those statues. That would be the best way of getting him out, his products, out and about the world than anything else. Every single High Commission and every single major embassy has at least 2 Dysons. At least 2. We shove them in there. Every single embassy in the world has a escape hood made by the Avon Rubber Company. In case there's a gas attack, they can all put their escape hoods and get the hell out of it, provided by the Avon Rubber Company. Use things like that creatively. Doesn't cost you anything. You don't have to advertise it. Think about how you can market in different ways. And that is what things like Scottish Enterprise or Invest Northern Ireland or whatever, of course, the UKTI, they should be thinking to help blokes like you as to how you can spread what you're doing. Because how are you going to get from there with those wonderful things that you're doing from a local to an international market? You know, and the High Commission, the residencies of the High Commission and the embassies, they all have parties. They all have the top architects in all those countries going to these parties. Many of the top architects in the world have homes over here, houses over here. We have bilateral business councils, the Singapore British Business Council. The top man who runs that's the biggest architect in Asia, Albert Hong. He's endlessly got massive investments in India and buildings in Dubai in the Far East. You know, all of them have requirements for statues, those sorts of things. Now, those are the sorts of ways in which we are all of us going to have to work together, if you're a small firm, a medium-sized firm, a large firm, to look at ways of working as a team, government, business, whatever, to find answers to broaden your product offering and your marketing opportunity. And that's the other thing. If you're going to go into exports, so you're in exports, then again, look at where you go. Look at where you start. Have you got a product that you can sell, that you can export? Question, only if it's working here, if it's working in Britain, it's going well, it's doing properly, then consider whether you can start overseas. But don't until you're absolutely clear that you've exhausted your home market and you've got the resources and time to put into it. Because if you take resources and time in a recession and ignore your own business, your own existing market, then you're going to be in a lot of trouble if you start to try and export. So again, get help. You can get it on the internet. You can get electronic help. You can get it through business links. You can get it through Hi. There are all sorts of ways you can do it. I'm all in favour of exporting, but make sure, if you're going to do it, that you've got the resources, and remember that it's going to cost you more. It's going to cost you more because you're going to have distributors. They're going to need margin. It's going to cost you more in terms of marketing, in advertising, in terms of promotion. But all these things can work, provided that you've got your plans right, your strategy right, and you've got the team right, and you've got the ability, and you've got the people to do it. What about your board? I've talked about the staff, I've talked about marketing, I've talked about cost. What about your board? Who have you got on the board? How good are they? Where's the man from Grouse? There he is. Well, we were just having a chat earlier, and you've got 3 or 4 non-execs, and 3 of them, you were telling me, were marketing people. So I said to him, well, there's 2 of them can go, isn't it? Well, you don't need 3 of them. No, seriously, you've got to look at the board. I mean, in Dyson, our board, we got rid of somebody the other day, purely, and he was a great guy and everything else. Well, he left, actually, we didn't really get rid of him. But we just felt, looking at the board, what was he bringing to the company that, you know, that we required? How every member of the board, I don't care what size of company you are, big, small, medium, ask yourself, what are they adding to the company in terms of orders? Where are they getting us sales? Where are they improving the ability of the company to make more, sell more? And I don't mind whether you're a service business, I don't mind whether you're a estate agent, I don't care whether you're, you know, whatever you are, what are they doing? And if there's 3 of them doing the same thing, get rid of 2 of them. I'm sorry, the board has got to be there for, and the people on it, to particular purposes to make sure that the company works better. Now, let me give you Dyson. Why am I on the board of Dyson? I have no idea, really. I mean, well, I'll tell you why I'm on the board of Dyson. I would tell you exactly why James wanted me on the board of Dyson. Because, as you read out, Martin, my experience, my knowledge of the Far East and that area. So I was the one who took the business, manufacturing in the UK, and took it to the Far East. And I won't go into the details of it, but I was the person who could put together whether it should be China or Malaysia or wherever, and how to do that and how to set it up, and whether we had our own factories, whether we subcontracted or so on. So I was there for particular purposes. Or I helped set up his Irish business. Why? Because I come from Northern Ireland, and you know what happens in Northern Ireland. So in Northern Ireland, you're going to help me do it. So there were particular things that I was there and capable of doing. We got in Bob Ayling. Remember the guy who ran British Airways? We got him in because the company was going so well, so brilliantly, so successful. I said to James, look, we need somebody on the board here who's made big cock-ups, James. I mean, as well as big successes, we need somebody who's made big cock-ups, because we're going to make big cock-ups, I tell you, in this company. If we don't have somebody there who says, hang on a minute. And Bob, you see, Bob did the flatbed for British Airways. Brilliant, brilliant. The flatbed was him. The revolving wheel was him. The dome was him. And the tails were him. And so he's been there, and he has a very good speech. You should get him up here one day. He's a very good little talker. Things I would prefer not to have done. And I tell you, Bob has been brilliant for Dyson. Because about a year ago, he said, oh, don't like this. Doesn't smell right to me, this. He said, I think we're in for a hell of a... He's a sailor. He said, I think we're in for a hell of a blow. And James, you know, James being James, he had designs for this, designs for this. There were more products, new things. You can the whole thing. I can't tell you what was happening. Millions of pounds being spent on this. The whole kitchen was going to be revolutionised. Every room in the house was going to be revolutionised. Everything was going to be more automated. And Bob said, James, if you go on like this, we're going to go broke. I said, why? This is all different, revolutionary. He said, yes, but people aren't going to pay 500 quid for an orange squeezer. You know, they're not going to do it, James. The world has gone past that. And so what we did was, and James is very good at listening. That's the other important thing about a boss. You've got to listen. You've got to listen. My point about if you're going broke, do something. Don't let it happen. You've also, whoever you are, and James made a mistake with that washing machine. And he didn't listen. It's a fantastic washing machine, but it was too expensive. He didn't listen. And he's never made that mistake again. He listens. And he listened to what Bob said. And Bob said, what we ought to be doing is making sure that when we bring out new things, the new things we bring out, we're absolutely certain are going to work. They've got to be revolutionary, and they've got to be something which we have got the money and the support put behind it. And as a result of that, the whole basis of the business altered to focus on what we do, which is, after all, vacuum cleaners. We're the largest manufacturer of vacuum cleaners on earth. And then to look at the new things that we can come out with, actually, which are based on a revolutionary motor, which the first of which is the hand dryer, which uses this motor. And I'm absolutely convinced that the result of having Bob on the board and that advice will have saved Dyson from what would otherwise could have been a major disaster for us. And we'll get through this, absolutely, however long it goes on. And that's the other point. It is going to go on and on and on. Because I cannot see, even if this wall of money that is being thrown into the economies of the Western world starts to get the economies moving, once that starts to work, somebody's got to pay it back. You know, these enormous debts are going to have to be paid back. How can it be paid back? Some of it can be paid back. Obviously, it'll have to be paid back out of growth. But the growth that's going to come about is going to be fairly anemic. Why is it going to be fairly anemic? Because taxes are going to have to go up in order to pay back the debts. Now, people say, oh, well, does that mean it's going to be like Japan for the next 10 years? Maybe. Maybe it's going to be like Japan. Is that so dreadful, Richard? Is that the end of our world? Japan is still the second biggest economy on earth. I mean, the Japanese still buy our vacuum cleaners in greater numbers at a higher price than almost anybody else. You know, Japan is actually an immensely successful and very rich country. So we may have to live through appallingly difficult times in terms of growth, but that doesn't mean we will necessarily be living in appallingly difficult times in terms of opportunity. But it does mean that things are not going to be as we have known them. And the other thing we're going to have to do in this country is we're going to have to rebalance our economy. We're going to have to rebalance it away from consumption and house ownership and all of that into exports and into manufacturing and into service selling. We're going to have to do that. We can't go on with these huge deficits. So everybody in this room who is tied up into the world of making things or selling services is going to have to look very differently about the way in which they're going to run their businesses over the next few years. And so the key points are, firstly, as I said, survival. What are you doing to make sure your business survives? How are you going to do things differently? How are you going to look after your staff? And then, how are you going to start getting the businesses that you're in, whatever they are, in order to meet the new needs of the markets in which you work? Because that they will. They will be there, but they will change. Look at the public sector. Certainly look at the public sector. There are... Where's Neil? He's outside somewhere, is he? Well, Neil is the guy who helps do the technology of all this, who puts all this together. Neil Sutton is an Irishman. He has a very, very clever little business, CCTV business. Well, lots and lots of people have CCTV businesses. His CCTV business, he concentrated in Ireland on selling to councils, looking on waste disposal sites, and he's got a piece of software that goes on the camera which allows you to zoom in to all the different great plastic boxes in which there are tanks, in which, you know, there are glass and there are clothes and paper and all of that. And he's concentrated on a piece of software which gives him an additional product, unique selling factor, which allows him to get all these councils in Ireland to take his CCTV, and he's got a monitor, he's got 12 people monitoring it 24 hours a day. So he's adapted. He's found something different. He's got something which is common to lots of people doing the same thing, but he's got himself a niche, and in that niche he's found that he's able to charge considerably more and make a much higher margin than he would otherwise want. So those are the sorts of things in which we have to look at. And so that's, I mean, I think I'm finished there. How much longer have I got? No, she's nodding her head. the final point is this. We can do all this. I mean, my grandmother was a Scot. She was a Gordon, tough woman, my goodness. You can get through all this. I don't believe for one moment that we won't come out of this better, tougher, more professional than we've been. I absolutely accept it's going to be hard and difficult. But nevertheless, I'm also convinced that we have still in this country the entrepreneurial flair, the skills, the ability, and the way in which we can work together, which will get us out the other end. And if you look in this room, and I was just going through the list of all the people we've got here, it is an astonishing variety of talents and achievement and just business opportunities. I mean, everything from bronze to you to drink to solicitors to, I mean, there's a whole food. Everything you've got in here is an extraordinary network of sophistication. So the only thing that can depress us is if we allow ourselves to be depressed. But I can see, and that doesn't, not only in the room, it's all those out there as well, wherever they're looking in from. There's immense opportunities out there for everybody. So I have a great confidence that at the end of it, when I come back in a few years' time, the vast majority of us will be here and doing better.
Right, ladies and gentlemen, there's now going to be an opportunity for some question and answers. For our guests in the room, there's going to be a roving mic, and I would ask you to use the mic, otherwise our guests online won't be able to hear what you say. And for our guests online, those of you that have been putting questions into us, they're on the screen in front of me, and I'll read those out for you. So we'll firstly take a question from online, and it's from Zoe in Aberdeen. And she's asked, how should service sector businesses consider approaching new markets abroad?
Well, in actually, Zoe, no differently from any other business. As I said, the first rule that you have to, I don't know what your business is, but the first rule that you have to have is to make sure that the business that you've got is robust and stable and successful here. Then the next thing to do is to look at those overseas markets where it's easiest for you to start. I mean, you don't want to start in China, for example, if you've got a business which is involved in the English language. You want to try and start in somewhere like Ireland. So, I mean, go somewhere where it's easiest to start. And interestingly enough, for small businesses, usually the market to begin with is Ireland. And the reason Ireland is so important, would you believe Ireland? It's only got 3.5, 4 million people, but Ireland is even now our 5th largest export market. It still buys something like 45% of its goods and services from the UK. So it's an easier place to start. How do you go about it? Well, you can go to the business link, you can go to all the, and I'm not up to date as I ought to be on what's available, advice and, that you can get from Scottish Government departments, but you can certainly get it from High. There's a whole range of services that they can help you with there. You can go on to the, and this is a useful way of doing it, you can go on to the British Embassy website in Dublin, for example, which gives you the total list of all the services that are available from the British Embassy and the commercial side of the British Embassy in Dublin. So do your research, use High, use other people. Another point I should have made earlier, at this time, don't do these things only on your own. Look at trade associations, look at chambers of commerce. One of the things that it's important to do right now is to see where you can not only take on your competitors, but also in things like overseas markets, where you can work with your competitors, because you may not be competing head-on in those sorts of markets. There may be ways in which you can work together. Start there. Then if that's a success, then you can start going from there outside, further into the European market, or wherever your niche is. But start it step at a time, make a success, because if it isn't a success, it'll put you off doing it again. So start small and go where it's easiest and take advice.
Okay, thank you. Now, can I have a hand raised or a show of hands for any other question in the room, please?
By the way, your accountants will help you too. They're only, you know, the Grant Thorntons of this world, they're very happy to give you advice on all that as well, but it costs rather more than ringing up high.
Anybody in the room got a question? Yes, question here at the front, please.
My name's Deborah. So my question is, if we're developing new products and services, I'm in the holiday business, should we be concentrating more on products that are cheaper in a recession, short breaks, day tours, that sort of thing for myself? Or should we be brave and keep some of the more expensive products in there as well, which, you know, are a bigger experience in the holiday industry, a longer week, more of a luxury sort of package?
Well, it's a very good point, because I didn't probably explain it as well as I might have done. I mean, one of the points I wanted to make was, Bob Ayling, by the way, is chairman of Travel Break, which is, you know, basically holidays, tents, caravans, all that. And his business is going unbelievably well. What I was trying to say was, when I was saying don't reduce quality, I don't mean that you can't de-spec something. But what you mustn't do is to make it, you know, cheap and nasty. What you have to do is, to, whatever you do, maintain the quality of what you're offering is. It may not have so many bells and whistles. You know, it may not be quite so as grand, and some of the more expensive elements may be cut out of it. But the most important thing is that you maintain the quality of what you're offering, and also that you maintain the margin. What you mustn't do, because this is the way to bankruptcy, is to try to maintain the quality and all the rest of it, and then reduce the price. Because if you then reduce the price, and of course your customers will be constantly asking to do that, then of course you get less margin, your cash flow is more difficult anyway because you're not getting paid so regularly, you may get a bad debt, and that can undermine you. It's more difficult to get credit insurance these days, so you must maintain the margin. And how you do it is really up to you. I mean, I can't tell you about the holiday business. You can work that out for yourself. But I mean, basically, yes, more people are going to spend time in this country than they're going to go abroad because of the pound and the euro and all that sort of stuff. So there is an opportunity there. But the most important, and there may well be there would be people in this country who still got plenty of money. You know, I mean, all those who are on inflation-proof pensions. You know, people sort of my age who retired a bit earlier, didn't do the stupid things I did in my life, you know, they're still getting the money and got good incomes. But the important point in this, so, is to adapt your product to where you think which best fits the market, and maintain the margin and maintain the quality of what you do. And don't spend too, you know, look at the PR of what you do. The point I was making to Farquhar about the bronzes, you know, get one of his bronzes in every single foyer of every high commission, of every embassy, will do more benefit for advertising his product than if he was to spend £1 million on television on it. So, you know, use lobbying. That's another thing to do. You know, use the local papers. Get the local MP in. Find any excuse to get yourself for doing things in the newspapers, for finding ways, because they've still got to print stuff. They've still got to talk about stuff, still got to go on the television news every night. So use all those things to get yourself across. And if you are in trouble, so a problem with being in trouble, lobby. Lobby. What are MPs there? What are MSPs there for? What are councillors there? Go out, give them help. Get them to go and give help to the bank manager, if you have to do that. Use every bit that you can, every lever that you can to promote yourself.
Okay. Thank you. Right, now take another question from online, and this is from David in Stornoway. David's got an anecdote and then a question at the back of it. His anecdote is that I noticed a Dyson hand dryer in an episode of Friends. I assume that this is part of a paid placement advertising campaign. And his question is, how can the success of that or any other form of advertising be measured in order to manage it properly?
No, I don't, David, I don't know. We didn't pay for that. We didn't pay for that. I'm absolutely sure, because it wasn't only the hand dryer that was in Friends, it was the vacuum cleaner as well. Now, sure, we have a PR agency in the States, and I'm quite sure the PR agency, David, was very much involved in getting that into those episodes. But that PR campaign is very, very much cheaper and can very often be very much more productive than very high-powered 30-second, 45-second TV ads. I'm not against TV advertising, but my personal view is that good public relations, and of course you can do that if you're a personality. I mean, James is very lucky because he's an extremely handsome, very articulate, very interesting man, and so he acts as a major public relations element of the company. I mean, he is the company is seen to be him. Of course, it's not him. The company has got a very strong management infrastructure underneath him, but he projects himself, and the company wants him to project himself, if you like, as the key face of the company. They don't want anybody else. They certainly don't want me up there or Bob Ayling or the CEO up there. It's him, and that's part of our central strategy of promoting Dyson. But to go back to the PR point, we didn't pay for that as such, but yes, I'm quite sure there would have been a PR agency which his work is to see how you get Dysons in as many, free opportunities as you can.
Okay, thank you. Take another question from online, and it's from Steve in Elgin, and he asks, how would you suggest managing business-to-business marketing and advertising on a limited budget? And Steve currently enjoys a number of preferred supplier contracts with local businesses, but he wants to be sure he creates a wider market for better protection.
Well, I mean, the answer is do what you do with your existing customers and then try and broaden it. I mean, if you've got if you're in local markets, then it's how you network your way out of that. I don't know what you do from what your business actually does, but again, there are all sorts of ways if it's B2B. I was talking about the trade association point, chambers of commerce, Rotary clubs, round tables. There are endless areas of networking which you can work at, get to, which do not require you to spend very much money. I'm sorry, it goes back to my rather narky point about cricket, rugby or football. I mean, my own view, Dave, is you can find ways in which you can get at market opportunities B2B without thinking you have to splash out on some form of entertainment. If I can give you an example of that, a B2B example, I'm the vice chairman of NEC, the Japanese company, they're European business, and we always supported Harlequins, and you saw NEC Harlequins, they were called. What did that do for NEC? Absolute zilch. What on earth, why was anybody going to buy a computer, buy an internet system, buy a whatever from NEC, a mobile phone, because we supported Harlequins? There was no connection, ludicrous. And what NEC then decided to do was, because they got the contract to put all the IT into the O2 Dome, was that they would use the O2 and take a box at the O2 as being the focus of their UK PR operation. And we have a room there, an exhibition room, of all what we do and how we do it. And then we have the box upstairs where we can take them to see Coldplay or Tina Turner or whatever. And that costs us a third of what supporting Harlequins used to cost us, and gives us an unbelievable B2B opportunity in terms of, because we get everybody down, we show them in the room about all the new high technology we're introducing. At the moment it's biometrics for the ID, for the internet, for our ID program, or for borders and all this sort of stuff. And then after that they can have something and watch a musical. And that really knits together. It's a very, very clever way of getting our message across. So David, my answer is that, I'm sorry if it's rather vague, but look at opportunities where you can network, but don't think you need to do it by giving forms of entertainment. You don't.
Okay, thank you. Now I'll give guests in the room a chance to ask any questions. We'll take there.
Brian Robertson from James Jones and Sons. You said that the country needs to rebalance its economy, and you mentioned, and I almost missed it, and you said something about away from home ownership. As a company that makes about 80% of our product for the new house build market, that worried me just a wee bit, and I wonder if you could amplify on that, please.
Well, what I was saying, perhaps didn't explain it right. What I mean, the consumer boom in Britain in the last few years has been built on two things: debt and people borrowing against their houses. That's what's happened. That's how the economy has expanded. They've expanded the debt in the economy, and people have been able to buy more and spend more, consume more, by taking out equity on their houses. That's obviously not going to happen. I mean, it can't. The equity in the house has gone down by 30%, may go down to 50%. It's just not going to happen. So if that major constituent of economic growth is now going to disappear, if additionally to that you're going to have higher taxes in order to pay back debt, which again will hit the consumer in their pocket inevitably, then if you're going to have growth in the economy as a whole, it's going to have to rebalance and come from investment, whether it's investment in services or manufacturing, and it's going to have to come from greater overseas trade. Now, as far as you're concerned, the question then is what will happen to house building in this country. That doesn't mean that there is not going to be a continuing and very large significant requirement for new housing, particularly in the south of England, where there is enormous demand for it, and where the number of houses currently being built or available is far below the level of long-term demand. So that will happen, but is it going to happen anytime soon? Frankly, I rather doubt it, and that was my point about these things going on longer than anybody would have hoped, because I cannot see that the banks are going to be able to rebalance their balance sheet under a considerable period of time. They're being forced to pay a 12% coupon to the government, so they're not going to start lending until they've paid that off. The financial services authorities demanding they're going to have bigger ratios of deposits to loans. The outstanding loan book, I was told the other day, of British banks is £750 billion. So no wonder they're not lending. So it's going to be longer, and where it will come back, it will have to come back mainly in the south of England, I suspect. Maybe there are other areas I don't know about Scotland. But if it's going to come back, then it's going to have to come back because people are going to have to change planning laws to make it easier to build. That's not going to be easy. You're going to have to find ways of getting cheap housing, lower cost housing. So I don't think it's going to be easy in your business. So yeah, I think you... No. I'll tell you what, you try and take your competitors out. That might help.
Okay, I think we've got time for one more question, which I'm going to take from online, and it's from Gary in Aberdeen. Entrepreneurs thrive on forward momentum. How do you suggest they keep their mindset right during a period of crisis?
Well, as I said at the end of what I was saying, in any recession there is always opportunity. It's the travel break point. We were talking to this lady here about, people are going to turn down from going to the south of France or wherever, and they might go out in a caravan, they might do a Margaret Beckett, and they might go out and do that. I mean, I had a business, one of my successes was a business making signs for estate agents. And signs for estate agents work wonderfully in a recession because no houses sell, there are signs everywhere. You go around the town, there are signs everywhere. And as soon as the recession ends and houses start, they don't need signs because they go so damn quickly they don't put them up. So there are always opportunities. So if you're an entrepreneur, look for something which is that bit different. Neil Sutton's point, the things in there. There are always opportunities. I was talking to Richard there about what he was doing about his photocopiers and his printers. Well, the reason I mention that, because my eldest son, he's got a business in which he's developed a very clever piece of software where he goes round barcoding and putting on a monitor like that, for example, if there's a solicitor here, big solicitor, they endlessly got printers, faxes, photocopiers. So he puts in the office space into the computer, the layout of the office. He goes round, he barcodes each piece of equipment, puts that on the office space so you can see where every single piece of equipment is. Then he turns around and says, well, why have you got 10 printers, 5 what it is? If you did this, this or this, and if you went to this company, that company, other, you could save so much by doing it. So that is a clever piece of technology which he has built up over the last 7 or 8 years, which has given him a niche which, you know, is going to go on going because more and more people are going to look to save on those sorts of bits of equipment. And it's not going to cost them anything, it's going to save them things. So there are always opportunities out there for doing things. And if you're an entrepreneur, you'll do it. You'll do it. I started being an entrepreneur in the miners' strike. That was good fun, I tell you. I had a business making table mats for the giftware trade, you know, and the power was off. It's quite difficult to get presses, you know, working when the power's off. It doesn't happen. You can't just sit on the damn thing and open table mat will come out the other end. So there are all those sorts of things which will still, I'm sure, get us through there in the end. And as a people, we like arguing, we like fighting, the Scots particularly, like a good scrap. And now's the time for a good scrap.
Okay, thank you. So before we go on to close with our second and final video case study, it remains for me to thank all of you here in the room and online for attending today. I would like to thank the 2 contributors to our video case studies, Farquhar and from Richard. I would especially like to thank our main guest speaker, Sir Richard Needham. So before I introduce the last video, it just remains for me to remind guests in the room and guests online to complete their evaluation forms, which is very useful for HIE and for Learning Works as we decide which other conferences to put on, and we have plans for at least another 4 for the remainder of this calendar year. So your feedback is very helpful and very useful to us. Therefore, what I'd like now to do is to introduce a video case study of Forsyths, a business local to Moray, based in Forsyths. And can we run the video now, please?
Richard Forsyth, Managing Director and Chairman of the Forsyth Group of Companies. The major company here, of course, is Forsyths Ltd, our base company. There has in fact been a coppersmiths in Forsyths since the mid-1800s. My grandfather bought the company in 1933. I joined the company in the late 60s. My son has now come back and joined the company, so we have a 4th generation now with Forsyths. We developed our business from coppersmithing only to the full design and build of distilleries. During the last downturn, if you like, in the Scotch whisky industry, we decided to develop our business to take in other industries to keep Forsyths going. Most significantly now, 50% of our business is oil and gas. Whisky is still very prominent, but oil and gas is obviously taking over our expansion. We have developed our business significantly over the last 15 years, and we have markets all over the world, both in oil and gas and in whisky. Because the home industry has been so buoyant for the last 2.5 to 3 years, we have been spoiled a little in the fact that most of our business has been within 100 miles radius of our home town here. When orders flow into the company and you don't have to go looking for them, complacency does set in a little. So you have to keep focused yourself. I mean, I have weekly meetings with my senior management team, and I keep beating the drum about this, that we can't afford to be complacent. We've got to keep working on everything. The one thing we will have to do, I think, is rekindle some of our overseas connections, concentrate more of our energies on further afield. I think for any company staff is everything. If you have poor staff, you have a poor company. If you have good quality staff, you have a good company. We look after our staff. We have very high training programs. We don't go into the labour market that often for staff. We try and train them in-house. Cash flow is always important to us. We have to negotiate progress payments right throughout our contracts, from placement of order right through to putting out the data books at the other end. So cash flow is always important, especially when you are reinvesting in the company. We have very strict credit controls. We talk to our clients all the time. About 80% of our business is repeat customers, which is a great accolade for our company actually. Price is always important in any contract. People like to know what they're paying. They like to know they're getting value for money. On top of that, we pride ourselves in producing high quality products, and we pride ourselves in delivering them in time. So that are the three key factors for our clients coming back to us. I'm actually very optimistic about the future of the business. We have some very good people here with key skills. We are working for two very blue chip industries here. We see no signs of recession at all. It may come a year down the line, but we see our future very optimistically. You've got to keep focused in your business and keep working hard at it. I mean, it doesn't come to you. You've got to go out there looking for it, and more so in harder times.